Good morning guys, welcome back to the channel. Little project update today on Silvia, my mk2 Cav GLSI saloon, and I'm just showing you what I'm on with at the moment. So, being a GLSI is a very rare model, and one of the standard features was electric front windows. Now, this is the switch pack out of the car, as you can see, with the two switches, and one of the problems I've had is that this rocker switch over the time has got very worn on the little hinge pieces at either side, and what that has meant is that it's kept flopping around. Now this one was actually the driver's one, but the problem was, obviously driving the car, I want to be able to open the driver's window, and it got to the point where I couldn't open the driver's window. So I rebuilt the switch years ago, and then I've had to redo it again recently. I didn't do a video on it, unfortunately, but I switched them round so that the better one with less wear and tear was on the driver's side, so that I could at least open the driver's window. But the problem is now it's 30 odd degrees, got this heat wave going on, and I want to be able to open my passenger window. So this is the problem. Those little pieces on the side, particularly that side, are very worn, and it's stopping it from pivoting in the way that it should, which is meaning that the little contacts inside, so it's got the little ball bearings there in the middle, they go into that part of the switch with the two little springs. But because it's all loose and floppy and not going the way that it should, it's not allowing the contacts to actually contact properly in the way that they should. So what is the solution? Well, one solution is to obviously source a new one of these. The other solution is to temporarily fit this. So I've got this 4-switch bank of switches, which came out of a Cavalier caliber, which was the special edition with all the body kit and everything. They were one that I stripped a few years back for spares. The body was completely scrap, so the body got scrapped, but I saved off it what I could. But the problem is I've just tried this in the car now, and the passenger side switch works. It is a little bit stiff, but it does work. But the driver's one doesn't at all. The driver's one is obviously worn inside. So that's a common thing. See how this stick. So I just plugged it in, because what I'd done, I was going out and I tried the passenger switch, and the passenger window I managed to wind it about halfway down, and then I thought, right, let's make sure I can get it back up again, and I couldn't get it to go back up. So the car was sat outside with the window half down. So I've just taken this one out, plugged it in, and managed to get the passenger window shut, so the car's all shut up again while I come in the house to sort it. But yeah, the driver's one doesn't work. So I was hoping I could just plug this in the car temporarily for now, until I could get my original switch fixed, so at least I'd have use of my windows over these next few days when it's boiling hot. But as I said, the driver switch isn't working. So what I'm thinking of doing is, seeing as how it is only actually the rocker switch that seems to be the problem, is I'm going to borrow one of these other rocker switches, and probably one of these rear ones, because it's unlikely that these rear ones will have been used anywhere near as much as the front ones. The front ones, particularly the drivers, is the one that's going to get used more than anything. So these actually, they just unclip very easily. You just pop a screwdriver under the edge of there, and you can just pop them out. So that's what I'm going to attempt to do. So I'm going to do that, and I'll be back shortly. Right guys, welcome back. So you've just been watching. I was going to dismantle my electric window switch to get the spare rocker switch. I'm actually now driving with both front windows open. I've not actually had to dismantle that switch that I was showing you with the 4 switches on. All I did was just fiddle with it a little bit more. I managed to get the driver's part of the switch working. So, good result. What I'm now thinking though, is now that I've got the 4 switch pack in the car, do I convert the rear windows to electric? What do you guys think? Now, one of the unique features of the GLSI is the fact that it's got electric front windows, but only electric front windows. And I've resisted converting the rear windows to electric because I kind of thought to myself, well, it'll take away a little bit of the aspect of what the GLSI is. You know, the GLSI has electric front windows but doesn't have electric rear windows, and that's like one of its unique features. But the temptation is great, I have to admit. The temptation is great to convert the rear windows because I've got all the mechanisms, I've got all the wiring loom, I've got everything that came out of that Cavalier caliber that I stripped a few years back. Now, I was going to convert the windows in Orwin to electric, but the problem is, because Orwin is an early model, the centre console switches don't fit in the centre console in Orwin. The switch pack will only fit in a mid-spec or a late-spec model like Silvia is. So then that leaves me with the problem that if I do want to fit all the electric windows in Orwin, I can't use the 4-switch switch pack. I'd have to modify the wiring, I'd have to use lots of different switches, lots of different, 4 different separate switches, and I'd have to do a lot of messing about. But if I decided to only convert the front windows to electric and use the rear motors and mechanisms in Silvia, it'd make the job a lot easier. Because one thing I could do is leave obviously Silvia with the front windows as they are, swap the wiring loom over to include the rear switches. Silvia has already got all the holes drilled for the wiring because she's got central locking, so the holes for the wiring are already there, so there's no drilling required. Because obviously that would be something that I won't be so keen on doing, would be drilling through the metal to make room for wiring looms and things. But as I say, I won't need to do that because she's already got the central locking anyway, and it's only another couple of wires that need to feed through. But then I'd have to cut the rear, I'd have to cut the rear door cards because I'd have to fit the rear electric window switches in the doors, and I'd also be left with the holes where the window winders were. So I'd have to cover the holes up with some kind of like sticky back plastic vinyl or something, you know, to try and make it look factory. So I don't know what to do. I mean, Silvia is a car which I'm not going to sell. I have toyed with the idea of selling her, but then I've come to my senses when I've been driving her these last few weeks. And I started driving her because the roof on the twin top started playing up and I couldn't get the roof to shut, so I started using Silvia. As you guys will know if you're watching the channel on a regular basis, I started using Silvia because the twin top was stuck at work with the roof down, and it was, luckily I'd got inside storage where I could keep it until I managed to get the roof shut. But since using Silvia as my daily car, you know, the idea of selling her just went out of the window. So now I'm thinking, well, do I convert the rear windows to electric since I've got everything that I need to be able to do it? Because that's one of the things, like on these hot summer days like today, you know, it's got this heat wave on at the moment, being up into the 30s, nearly 40 degrees in parts of the UK. It would be nice to be able to drop the rear windows down as well while I'm driving. But I don't know. Is it a modification I want to do? Or do I just do the full 4-window electric conversion in Orwin and convert all 4 windows in Orwin and just modify the wiring loom to suit? So the problem is the electric windows in the very early ones, it was only actually the CDI that had electric windows, and it was electric in the front only. I think you could have an option for electric front and rear windows, because I do remember once seeing an estate sorry, I'm just nearly choking then. I do remember seeing a Mark II cab estate, which was one that actually lived in Germany. Just shutting the windows up, just showing off that they work. And he'd actually converted an early spec estate into having electric windows, and he had a bank of 4 switches in the centre console. I'm just putting my steering lock on just to be safe. But yeah, I'll just show you. So there we go. The 4 switch back is there in the car. I've given it a clean so it's all nice. But yeah, the early spec, like Orwin, doesn't have this centre console in the same way as this. And in the early spec, the electric windows are actually in the centre console down here. It doesn't have any of this up to the dashboard. It's like across and flat. I'll have to show you in Orwin when I get back, and I'll edit the video to include that section. So I'll do that in a bit. So I'm just going to do some shopping anyway. So once I've done my shopping, I'll drive back home and I'll show you the centre console in Orwin so you can see the difference with the early spec console. Alright guys, see you in a bit. Right guys, through the magic of video editing, it's now actually the following day. I was going to show you the centre console in Orwin when I got home from shopping last night, but because of the time it had actually started to go dark, it was a bit too dark, so I thought I'd carry on this the following morning. So as you can see, the centre console in Orwin is very, very, very different to the centre console in Silvia. The centre console ends underneath the dashboard. It doesn't join up to the dashboard itself. Silvia, as you'll see just a few seconds ago, has the big cassette storage unit, and this section here is completely flat. The adjustment for the electric mirror is there, and the electric window switch pack with the 4 switches in goes there. So this is a perfect illustration of how, if I wanted to convert Orwin to electric windows, I couldn't use the later spec electric window switch pack. You see that little blob there? That's actually a little blob of sweat that's just dribbled off my head. That's how hot it is. Yeah, I think it's about 40 degrees now, and it's probably even warmer than that in the car because the car's been sat on the drive and it is really rather hot in here. You can see the different design of the electric mirror switch as well. With this being an early spec, it's totally different. It's got this little storage unit and that big storage unit at the front. I do have to apologise for just how dirty it all is. Orwin, if you don't know, is my rat cav, and part of the rattiness is probably keeping it a bit mucky, to be fair. And I think if I cleaned it all, it wouldn't really be in keeping with the ratty nature of the car. So I do hoover the rugs, I do hoover the carpets, I do, you know, keep it reasonably clean. I mean, the dashboard and everything is pretty clean, all the controls and switches and things. But I think if I cleaned it too much, it might take away its rattiness. But yeah, I just wanted to get onto the electric window switches. Now, if you look on the camera very carefully, you can see a very, very thin outline of where the switches actually fit. You can just kind of see it in the shape of the plastic. If I just dust it a little bit, it does actually just need a dusting. I don't go OTT with the cleaning, but I do usually at least dust it. But yeah, it's not been dusted for a while either. I've made a clean patch now. I'm gonna have to do the rest, aren't I? But yeah, you can see it on the camera. I can see it on my phone screen. You can just see like the making out of the little lines where the 4 switches would be. I mentioned about this Mark II Cavalier estate, which had got the very, very, very rare 4 electric windows. And it's a gold one actually. It belongs to a guy who actually lives in Germany. They never had the Mark II Cavalier or the Opel Ascona estate in Germany, We had the Cavalier estate, the Vauxhall, but it was never badged as an Opel. Nowhere in the world did they have another version of the estate with the same front end. They obviously had the Holden Chimera in Australia, which was what Vauxhall used to make the Cavalier estate. They used the rear panels. But yeah, this one particular estate, he bought it in the UK, took it back to Germany, registered it in Germany. I always remember it because of it having the 4 switches in the centre console, and you can see where the 4 switches go. So obviously, if you took the centre console out, there would be the shape on the inside where you would cut them out. So what I've thought about doing is, if I do convert Orwin to electric windows all round, I'll try and source 4 switches. I have actually got 2, because of the same switches that were used in the early Novas, like the Nova GTE, when it had electric windows, the Nova Diamond, a special edition that had electric front windows. So they're the same switches, and I do actually have a couple, but I'd obviously have to source another couple if I wanted to do all 4. But then I'm also in 2 minds, because I do like the good old manual wind windows. The only time it's a pain is on a hot summer's day like today. If you're already driving along and you want to put the passenger window down, you have to wait until you're stopped in traffic, and then you have to lean across and manually put the window down. Alright, it's not that much of a pain, but I just like having electric windows. You know, it's the one modern-ish feature that I do like having. I mean, you can't actually say that electric windows are modern, because power windows have been around for decades. A lot of American cars in the 50s had power windows. A lot of Mercedes and things even in the 60s had power windows. Right, they were hydraulic powered, but they had power windows. So power windows are not exactly a new modern feature, so it is something I do fancy doing. But there you go, guys. So that's the centre console in an early spec Cavalier. The mid spec actually has the same centre console as the late spec. So these early ones are the only ones that have this style console. So there you go. So thanks a lot again for watching, and I shall see you next time. I have got a lot more content on its way. I'm having a bit of fun this week because I've got some time off. So that's why I'm actually finding time to do these videos. I'm going to have to go because the sweat, as you can see, is dripping, and I'm absolutely soaked, and I need to go and wash my face because it's basically running in my eyes now. Alright guys, thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.